Basic appraisal procedures, page 126 through 129. Residential applications, chapter 4. Residential applications provide the opportunity to discuss practical examples of appraisal concepts at work. We begin by looking at some frequently occurring appraisal assignments for the residential appraiser. Appraisals for mortgage finance transactions. Then we overview some of the most common regulations and guidelines an appraiser must typically observe in appraisals for residential mortgage transactions. We also discuss other types of residential assignments, including appraisal review assignments and problem solving using other value definitions. Also included is a discussion of residential land valuation methods, a review of the definition of market value, and examples of how the definition elements might play out in a real assignment. Examples and case studies are included. Page 128. Residential appraisals for mortgage transactions. So far, we have looked at fundamental appraisal practices and concepts universally used for the appraisal of most any type of real property and for most any use. We now turn our focus to some of the most common appraisal work for the residential appraiser. Appraisal for mortgage lending transactions. Residential appraisal for a mortgage lending transaction could occur when someone is purchasing, building, refinancing, or obtaining a second mortgage home equity loan or line of credit. Appraisers may be engaged in some of these assignments by lenders funding the loans using money deposited in their own institution, known as primary market or portfolio lenders. However, in many, if not most cases, the appraisal will be used in a secondary market finance transaction. A mortgage originated by the lender/client but sold to an investor. Key terms: arm's length transaction, a transaction that occurred under typical conditions in the marketplace with each of the parties acting in their own best interests. Asking price, price the seller sets for the property when it is first put on the market. Competitive market analysis, CMA, a method of determining the approximate market value of a home by comparing the subject property to other homes that have sold, are presently for sale, or did not sell in a given area. Days on market, DOM, the amount of time that a property is available for sale or lease. Extraordinary assumption, an assumption that a fact is true directly related to a specific assignment which could alter the appraisal's opinions or conclusions if found to be false. Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, Freddie Mac, a federally chartered institution that functions as a buyer and seller of savings and loan residential mortgages. Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, the nation's largest privately owned investor in residential mortgages. They have to be similar homes to subject. True, observe no adverse conditions. Extra notes. Performing appraisals for the secondary market. The nation's largest investor in residential mortgages is Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae has very specific regulations and guidelines for appraisal analysis and reporting when they are involved. Other secondary market participants, such as Freddie Mac and FHA, have similar standards for appraisals performed for their purposes, and it may not be unusual for a primary market or portfolio lender to have contract agreements with appraisers requiring them to observe guidelines such as Fannie Mae's for mortgage appraisals. This contract agreement allows the primary market or portfolio lender the option to later sell the loan to Fannie Mae. Secondary market participants, such as Fannie Mae, have numerous guidelines and regulations that must be observed by an appraiser when completing an assignment to their standards. The ethics rule, competency rule, and scope of work rule of USPAP recognize these standards as additional laws, regulations, and requirements as assignment conditions that are part of the appraiser's scope of work. The ethics rule requires that when any of these special requirements are an element of an assignment, the appraiser must observe them. Page 129. The competency rule requires the appraiser to recognize the special requirements, know what they are, and how to apply them. There are many regulations and guidelines to be aware of when performing the residential appraisal to Fannie Mae standards. Let's look at some of them, beginning with expectations of the appraiser. Extra note: applied to how much, I don't know what that is. Appraiser competency. Fannie Mae does not approve individual appraisers, leaving the selection process to the lender. Fannie Mae expects lenders to hire appraisers who are competent and have knowledge and experience with the particular property type of the appraisal subject. While USPAP allows appraisers to disclose the lack of competence prior to acceptance of an assignment and then gain competence during the assignment, Fannie Mae asks lenders not to engage an appraiser in an assignment if the appraiser does not already have the knowledge and experience. Further, the appraiser must have experience in the subject's geographic location and have access to reliable data sources for the area in which the property is located. Appraiser performance. Appraisers must report in factual and specific terms, avoid the use of subjectivity, not violate fair housing and fair lending laws, and provide complete and accurate appraisal reports. Fannie Mae is very specific about some unacceptable appraiser practices. These are also good guidelines for all services an appraiser provides. Some of these unacceptable practices include a value opinion not supported by market data or one that is misleading, a value conclusion based on the protected class status of the borrowers, owners, occupants of the subject or neighborhood, misrepresenting the physical characteristics of the subject property or the comparable sales, not commenting on negative factors regarding the subject neighborhood, the subject property, or the proximity of the subject property to negative influences, failing to sufficiently analyze the prior or current listing or sale terms of the subject property or the comparable sales. Actual sold for, extra note. The most probable, extra note. Something about goods. For sale by owner. Key terms. FSBO. A property sold without the assistance of a real estate professional. Forecasting. Creating future assumptions based on current data models and trends. Forecasting adjustment. Applied to address how much less the property will eventually sell for if positioned to sell in a less than typical period. Market price, the price the property sold for in an actual transaction. Market value, the most probable price the property should bring in a competitive open market. Value, the amount of goods or services offered in the marketplace in exchange for something else.